Joining us now is News Corp columnist Louise Roberts and entertainment reporter for news.com.au, Bronte Coy. Ladies, welcome back. Now, Louise, there's been plenty of back and forth about how these names made it to the publication, but it's caused quite a stir, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, what a week. Endgame, whose endgame are we talking about? Are we talking about Meghan and Harry, perhaps? Because really now they have to stand up and say, yes, it was Kate and Charles, or no, it was not Kate and Charles. To let it fester in this way is absolutely appalling. And the whole alleged racism thing has been hanging over the House of Windsor for the last 3 years. And the ins and outs, and he said, she said, and you see the contradictory behaviour you outlined at the top of the show there, Caro, is just, it's obscene. So they really have to now bail out their family and say what the truth actually was. And let's not forget, these are allegations. They've never been proven. And we know the Queen herself said that recollections may vary. So now it's back on them. They have to actually say what happened and who said it and what was actually said, if it was said.
I think that's right. And Bronte, this has all become bigger than the story itself, hasn't it?
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more than with Lou there, which is that I do feel that Harry and Meghan are in a position now where they really need to say something on the record about what they meant, who it was, all of that, because they're in a bit of a tight spot now. But this has become the big story. I mean, we had these excerpts last week from the book. We did know, Omid Scobie had said prior to the book's release that it was going to be going over these significant events. So we knew it would rehash old wounds. But of course, the leaking of the names in however manner this has actually happened has now become the story, to the point where, of course, the author has had to go on the defensive and give interviews denying responsibility for it. This has become the major story. It's really overshadowed any other anecdotes that were in the book. It also has, unfortunately, overshadowed really the King's big moment at the Climate Action Summit this week, where he delivered a speech. And of course, everyone's just talking about the fact that the royals were named, and that's the focus. So I don't think anyone's really come off well in this situation, other than perhaps the people that are profiting from the book sales, just because what a week of publicity. But yeah, it's been an absolute mess.
It has. And Bronte, staying with you, those comments by the translator, I mean, that then makes the situation for everyone else quite difficult, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's really quickly become a he said, she said situation. And as you said before, I don't really know that we're going to find out exactly what happened, because already it's quite vague, anything that we have heard about it. So the translator has said, and bearing in mind she's someone who's done this job for many years, she has referenced the fact that she has translated many, many books, never, ever experiencing an issue like this before. And she said the words were there in black and white in front of her. So that's what she said and what she's put out there. And she says she translated exactly what she was given. Of course, we heard at the top of the show there that the author has said it was never in any draft, any edition that he submitted. I don't know where the truth sits in all of this. I don't know how this could happen. But as I said, it's a very big mess. And I do believe that we are unlikely to find out exactly how this has occurred. All we know is that something is going to happen as this all keeps unfolding between the royal family and Harry and Meghan and the author, and the shambles.
I feel like everyone's ducked for cover. Well, almost everyone. Louise, Piers Morgan didn't hold back naming names. Here's what he had to say.
I'm going to tell you the names of the two senior royals who are named in that Dutch version of the book. Because, frankly, if Dutch people wandering into a bookshop can pick it up and see these names, then you, British people here, who actually pay for the British royal family, you're entitled to know too. I don't believe any racist comments were ever made by any of the royal family, and until there is actual evidence of those comments being made, I will never believe it. The royals who are named in this book are King Charles and Catherine, Princess of Wales.
Louise, it was inevitable though, wasn't it? I mean, the names had been published. They were in that version of the book. It was becoming a very poorly kept secret. It was only a matter of time before it was openly reported, right?
That's right. And look, Piers was bold and he was blistering, but he's also essential in what he said. It really puts it back onto the Sussexes to say, if this has ended up in a book and you're making these allegations years ago without actually naming them at the time, we're all on tenterhooks waiting to hear who it was. Now is the time to come to the party and say truth or it's false. Just, you know, you really have to speak up now to what Bronte said earlier as well. So, and I think Piers made some excellent points around, you know, people all over the world took the comments about racism and other things at face value, and, you know, grievances were sort of given this sort of veneer of truth, and it was like my truth versus the truth. So, you know, it's absolutely blistering what he said, but, you know, it had to be said. A line had to be drawn and thrown back into the court of the Sussexes.
And I think this is the point, right, Bronte? There is now that we know who the names are, there becomes this question about the credibility or the sources behind the allegations.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, with all these royal books, of course, the issue is that most of the insiders that are sharing information, and often they are top level, but they're unnamed sources. So we don't really have any way of verifying which claims are most likely to be accurate, or where they sit, or which camp they've come from. And before this book was even published, Scobie was quite a well-known figure and quite divisive also following the release of Finding Freedom, his first book, which really told Harry and Meghan's story before they started telling it themselves. So a criticism that has followed him is that he is very sympathetic to their side, that he does, often it has been said that he provides just that side without a lot of balance. And so, again, when you're reading this book and you're looking at it from that perspective, you know, you do have to take that in as a factor. And you know, when we're talking about, this is the issue, we're talking about such big accusations that have lingered around for so long. We don't know where his source came from with this. He suggests in the book that he has, you know, 8 to 10 people in the room when all these really important conversations happen. But I think this stems largely from a letter that was sent between Meghan and Charles, allegedly. So in that case, you have to imagine that there'd be significantly less people looking at it. So again, you wonder who the sources are. And this is the problem with royal books often. They're unnamed sources. We don't know where they've come from. It is very hard to pin down the accuracy of what we're reading.
Yeah, that's fair. Now, Louise, there was always going to be blowback on the Sussexes. What's been the reaction?
Well, the reaction almost is that the pair of them belong on Big Brother. I mean, they've been accused of having a very sort of low rent, bad strategy to publicity, not befitting a royal status or even someone who's left the firm in recent years as well. And, you know, they had such a golden opportunity to build a royal court, as it were, in Hollywood itself, and they've just blown it up. They've blown it up with this insistence on attacking their family, ostracising their children from their cousins by virtue of that, and all the attacks on the family. So it's a very, very strange strategy, even though we're being told that Meghan's got new representation and, you know, new people guiding her on what to do. But, you know, they're almost like reality TV stars, and I don't say that in a favourable way at all.
And Louise, there are broader, obviously, consequences for the relationship with the rest of the family. There are a few barbs in Endgame for Queen Camilla, but query whether they'll actually stick the way they were intended to stick.
Well, absolutely. I mean, Camilla is Teflon. This is the queen of never complain, never explain, which I think really endeared her to the late queen as well. But in the book, apparently Camilla rolls her eyes when someone mentions veganism or sort of gender identity issues. And there's other sort of comments she makes around, you know, it wokedom, thinks it's, you know, a load of rubbish, which that's not going to hurt her reputation. That's going to garner a whole new generation of fans who love her for her straightforward attitude as well. So I think, you know, like I said, Camilla can't really put a foot wrong in this situation.
Absolutely. But Bronte, the more dramas that seem to engulf the Sussexes, the more it appears to isolate them from existing circles. Tell us about the society wedding they apparently weren't invited to.
Yeah, this is a big story that kind of came in the middle of this massive book storm that's happening this week, and it's quite sad. So the Duke of Westminster, who is a long-time childhood friend of both Harry and William's and is understood to be actually Archie, Harry's son, of course, his godfather, he's getting married next June. It's going to be the society wedding of the year. The King and Queen are expected to be there. Prince William and Kate are expected to be there. But it's understood that he and his fiance and his family have decided not to invite Harry and Meghan, and that he'd actually wanted to, but he realised that things were just so strained between the family, they couldn't put the royals in a position that they may feel uncomfortable. So that's a really sad situation to be in. It really just, again, paints a picture of how far things have fallen for Harry and Meghan. You know, this is one of his oldest friends, and he does just have a few key friends left by many reports. So, yeah, the fact that he's now having to be excluded, because it would be so awkward. You can imagine for the bride and groom, it's a really tough situation. It's hard enough when you're not royal or famous or royal adjacent planning a wedding with all the guests. You know, with this one, where are you seating everyone if Harry and Meghan are there? So, yeah, it's a really sad situation, but really does just highlight how far out of it now, how far out of the loop that Harry and Meghan are, but Harry especially.
And Louise, I've only got about 30 seconds left. Anything to add to that?
Well, to see his friendship group sort of, you know, crumble like this must be heartbreaking for Harry as well, because although he's, you know, launching broadsides at his own family, he's probably still hoping that his mates in the background will always choose him over his brother, but clearly that's not happening at all. He's being ostracised by his own friendship group, which is quite tragic because he obviously doesn't have any real friends probably in America. They're all with him or attracted to him because of the royal connection, but it's time for a bit of a rethink on who his mates are and maybe rebonding with his family, although that seems very unlikely at this point.